For some reason, an old documentary of gay men cosplaying as heterosexual Mormons has gone viral all across social media. And as a gay man myself, and frankly, someone who is still a little bit bitter that I was in love with a man who was fully in the closet in high school, this one is personal for me. You may be asking, what am I bringing to the table that the other YouTubers who have already covered this haven't already brought? Well, I don't know, how about a lifetime of being called anti-gay slurs every time I hold hands with a man in public? In other words, the gay perspective. My Husband's Not Gay chronicles 3 couples, and in each couple, the husband is suffering from same-sex attraction, or SSA. And I say the word suffering quite intentionally because as it's discussed in the documentary, it might as well be either a crime or a disease. And unfortunately for this particular brand of homophobes featured in this documentary, there already is a pretty well-documented disease that has ravaged the gay community. It's called jealousy. It's a disease, bitch. Get well soon. So right away, it is hard for me to wrap my mind around the fact that the love and joy that is expressed when a man loves another man is being treated the same way as if it were a deadly affliction to be managed, rather than a fundamental part of the human experience that is, of course, worthy of unconditional respect. This special was a little tough for me to get through, but at the end of the day, making fun of delusional people is always funny. Let's laugh at them together. My name is Patrick, but my friends call me Pat, and if you like my videos and like my content, please like and comment on this video. It gets it out to more people, which means I can make more videos for you guys, and consider subscribing. I'm also on social media. Username's there, link in the description if that's your thing. Heart back by popular demand. So for once in my YouTube career, the context part of this video is actually going to be pretty short. Contrary to what some YouTube titles and thumbnails may lead you to believe, including maybe this one depending on how I phrase it, My Husband's Not Gay is not, in fact, a long-lost TLC reality show. No, in fact, it is a one-off documentary special in a larger series called TLC Presents, an anthology series, although some episodes would get sequels, about eccentric personalities. Although it does pain me to admit it, other episodes in this show would probably make for some phenomenal YouTube videos, so comment if you want to see me taking on such nebulous tasks, like watching an episode that features, quote, outspoken UK personality Katie Hopkins putting on weight and then losing it all again to prove that fat people don't have to be fat. So, you know, comment if you want to see that. Please don't comment that. Please don't comment that. I know you are. My brain can only handle so much stupidity, and between watching this and watching Megalopolis, it is like Chernobyl up in my cerebrum.
So go back to the club.
So as I've mentioned before, these men are not gay. No, instead, they just have SSA, or same-sex attraction.
And about 4 years ago, Curtis came to me one morning and told me that he had same-sex attraction.
Yet, despite this, all 4 men in the show are maintaining or are attempting to maintain a marriage with a woman.
There have been periods in our marriage where I knew that the attraction wasn't there.
There are a lot of great pop culture references I can make to relate this to something you might have seen, but since we're dealing with closeted gay Mormons, perhaps none are better than the Book of Mormon and the song Turn It Off Like a Light Switch, detailing a bunch of Mormons who are just struggling to conceal their same-sex attraction.
Gay's bad, but Brian is worse, so just realize you have a terrible curse.
And given how one of the men on My Husband's Not Gay chooses to describe himself, I do wonder if he approves of this song.
I don't feel like I fit the mold of guys that are attracted to other men, other than my deep and abiding love for Broadway show tunes and the attraction to males. Those are the 2 things that are kind of gay about me.
So that's just a little bit of an aperitif in the homophobia that will be quite present throughout this entire documentary, being delivered by people who are ridiculous and stupid, and it's quite fun to laugh at them. Hey! Ugh, not you again. Have you considered buying my product or watching my 2-minute unskippable advertisement? No, I haven't. And thanks to today's sponsor, Pi, now I don't have to. Look, no one loves having advertisements shoved in their face. It's true. Everyone hates me. Pi is an ad blocker that will make your time on the internet infinitely more enjoyable. Gone are the days of trying to download something and then instead of a download button, there's 50 different advertisements that all say download here and somehow will all give your computer a virus. Pi is a free ad blocker that with one click can instantly clear up your screen from the dozens of advertisements that are plastered all across most websites. There's even a visual feature you can toggle so you can see it happening right in front of you. I feel like I'm slowly fading away. They also have a companion shopping extension, which will automatically apply coupons across thousands of online stores and making sure you never miss out on a deal. But the best part about Pi is that you can opt into their rewards program. By seeing a limited number of Pi approved ads, you make money, the person showing you the ads makes money, you know, not that much money. I am, again, a YouTuber after all, which is going to be just a super fun conversation when I have to break that news to my extended family this Thanksgiving. But if you use the rewards program, everybody wins, except for my grandma, who wanted me to become a lawyer. That's probably not happening. So if all of that sounds good to you, click the link down below in my description or go to pi.org/myfriendscallmepat to get Pi. It's free, it helps out the channel, and it'll help you have a much better time on the internet. Again, that's the link down below in my description or pi.org/myfriendscallmepat. Thanks again to Pi for sponsoring this video, and now back to your regularly scheduled programming. So maybe you could have assumed this based on what we've already been talking about, but this is a distinctly Mormon philosophy. There are plenty of religions out there that really don't care for gays like me, and plenty that do. Also just have to put that out there, not just, you know, for the religious out there, but also for my own mental sanity. It's good to envision a world where I'm not completely disliked, just mostly disliked. Jesus, after all, did supposedly die for my sins, and I'm assuming that includes both my laziness and the fact that I was in a 1.5-year-long situationship with a man who did not respect me. Mormons are probably the most bizarre sect of Christians in America, which is really saying something because they're up against some stiff competition, like the Amish, who refuse to use any technology made before the Black Plague and have a reputation in America for going around on horses and buggies and selling us cute armoires.
You know I shun fancy things like electricity.
Yeah, somehow, the Mormons are weirder than that. What matters for our story today is that they don't really care for the gays, and they have such nice houses. What the I mean, seriously, I just kind of want to queen out with the wives and then, like, also get their recommendation for who redid their kitchen. Just for no reason. We begin the show with a truly bonkers introduction that will deal with many of the themes we're going to be addressing throughout the runtime. Oh boy, that intro screen is really not lying. If anything, it's kind of understating what we're about to see because, yes, these people are quite different. And there's going to be a little bit of reality television flair, stretching the truth to some extent, but just to give you an example of what we're about to be in for, there's going to be a confessional between the husband and wife talking about how much they love each other. Then we're going to go immediately to a sexy basketball scene where the husbands are oogling up a bunch of hot, hunky guys playing basketball. That is not an exaggeration. That is just a taste of what we're in for the next however many minutes.
You mind if we join? We'll be shirts, you be skins.
Sounds good to me.
All right, you guys? Okay, we'll be skins. Come on, Dwight.
There are 3 couples, and first we're meeting Jeff and Tanya, who've been married for 9 years and have 1 kid together. And Jeff is, for lack of a better word and a better way to articulate this, the gayest one there, and someone who I have no doubt has definitely slept with a man during the duration of that marriage, or at the very least, has received a tearful handjob from one. But it's okay though, because there's actually a pretty obscure verse in Leviticus that says, it's not gay if the other man is wearing gloves. So scripturally, he is in the clear, on track to reach the pearly gates. Remember everybody, handjobs are okay, because as long as you're not using those pearly whites, you will be reaching the pearly gates. And I say all of this because Jeff is probably the one who is most open about his present and dominant attraction to society's hunky men. And that's going to be a recurring theme throughout this documentary. Then we meet Brett and Morgan. Yes, Pret. And I just want to say, whenever we see a confessional with them and both of their names are there, I keep thinking it's going to say Pret a Manger, like the restaurant, you know? And I'm apologizing to my French teacher for butchering the pronunciation there. This isn't even really a joke. This is just a thought that I need to get out in the world because it was something that I just thought when I was watching this, and I brought it up to my roommates and they didn't even laugh, and now I'm feeling a little bit insecure about it. But Pret a Manger, see? You get what I mean. Pret and Megan are childhood friends. Well, sort of.
We met when we were 15. I was always interested in him, but the feelings weren't reciprocal for obvious reasons.
And you know, I can relate to you, Pret. Believe it or not, a lot of girls had crushes on me in high school.
That is so, Cap Jr.
But instead of deciding to essentially live a lie, I just said, no, we're not going to get married. We're not going to do that. And obviously this is just a brief snippet of these people's lives, but Megan in this documentary does not really come across as the most confident of women.
The first thing that went through my mind, will he be attracted to me? At the same time, though, it was, well, at least he doesn't have anybody else to compare me to.
Frankly, every wife in this special is rocking with an undercurrent of insecurity, which I can only describe as completely befitting a marriage where your husband is incredibly gay.
Well, is it relevant to pursue that a hottie in that costume
Is automatically, radically,
Ironically, comically, genetically
gay, officially gay, 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 gay.
And while the men in the show don't identify as gay, I certainly do, so of course, that means referencing musical theater. Anyways, we meet our final couple, Tara and Curtis, who have been together for 20 years until after 16 years, Curtis dropped the bomb that he was suffering from SSA, same-sex attraction. By the way, I feel silly every time I justify that acronym by saying it, but whatever. So me, in my head, and the producer in real life ask the question, what's the difference between that and being bisexual? Because perhaps it doesn't need to be said, but I think it bears being said anyway. It is entirely possible, and many people are in the context of being a man who is attracted to other men, who is in a monogamous relationship with a woman, a loving monogamous relationship. Being bisexual in no way preludes that from happening. Precludes, I think, was the right word. Oops. Curtis, though, pushes back on this take regarding bisexuality.
In mainstream America, they're considered bisexual.
But you don't identify with that word.
I don't necessarily. And if you look at most of the studies that have been done about sexuality, they'll show you that sexuality is fluid, it changes. Ultimately, when it comes to our faith and our belief, what matters is how we act.
And here's one of the many things about Mormonism as it's presented in this documentary that just makes no sense to me. How can you say, okay, sexuality is a spectrum, which is frankly a pretty progressive opinion that honestly not a lot of American Protestants have, especially on the more extremist side, and then go on to say, well, you know, if you're participating in that spectrum, you're gonna get kicked out of the church or whatever. We know that sexuality is a spectrum, our faith just tells us to ignore it. And frankly, it would be one thing if these guys were just bisexual and didn't really make it a part of their personality and didn't really ever talk about it, like Elio's father in Call Me By Your Name. Oh yeah, that dude's bisexual, maybe even gay. Okay, kind of just coming up. He really seems to love his wife. Okay, but the men in this documentary, I feel like they talk about that a lot. And my reasons for thinking this, well, they have a prayer group entirely comprised of the men suffering from SSA and their wives.
In Salt Lake City, there is a pretty tight-knit SSA community.
And real quick, I'm gonna hit you with a good news, bad news. The bad news, I always like to start with the bad news, is this rather depressing clip from Pret.
If it was accepted to be a homosexual in the church, would I be gay? Or would I live that lifestyle? Maybe 8 or 9 years ago, 10 years ago, the answer would be yes.
Yep, pretty bleak. In the past, yeah, I would have followed who I was as a person and lived authentically as a gay man. But, you know, now I'm not going to do that and, you know, I'm chill with it, whatever. Oh yes, good news. Apparently SSA is spreading all across South America like a pandemic.
There's a lot of SSA in Argentina. Did I tell you that?
No.
Yeah, that's a big problem down there too.
What do you mean by SSA being a problem?
I love how everybody in this room immediately is like, whoa, what do you mean SSA is a problem? Motherfucker, you are talking about it like it is an STD, and you're surprised that this random Mormon guy doesn't like it? This is the least surprising thing I think I've ever seen. Also, again, seeing these people talk about being queer like it is a curse really irritates me. To play devil's advocate, if you believe that there is a creator, there is a God, and he created people in his image, presumably, I think he meant to make us gay guys. I think he meant to do that, because if he didn't want us to be doing that, why did he invent homosexuality in the first place? Did he think that, maybe just spitballing here, that Shohei Ohtani was both so attractive and so talented that he couldn't just be coveted by women, only one half of the population, because he's a two-way player who both pitches and hits? He had to be sexually desired by both men and women? Yeah, okay. If that's the case, God, you might have been cooking there. And speaking of sports, let's get to the sexy basketball scene, complete with a microaggression.
If we're gonna go play a little basketball, you mind taking the do-rag off? It's not really a thing.
It's not?
Actually, now that I think about it, that might fully veer into the category of being a regular aggression. It's here we learn that the SSA men have a danger scale to determine amongst themselves how hot they feel the guys around them are. That's basically it. It's kind of very vain.
The danger scale goes from 0 to 4. A 1 on the danger scale is you notice, you look.
A 2 means you looked again.
A 3, you'd be tempted to turn around and look again and again.
A 4 pretty much means you're requiring restraints.
This is all okay though, because they don't have all the fun, because soon the wives come over, because they also want to look at the hot guys. That is not an exaggeration, that is what one of them says. Maybe this is just the prequel for the absolutely real show about Mormon swingers. Believe it or not, swinging also in Leviticus. You guys, scripturally, you're in the clear. But where they run astray from God? Wearing mixed fabrics. What do you think are in basketball shorts? Hello, eternal damnation?
I would describe my style as basketball shorts.
So a couple of things. It's at this point as you're watching the special that you really realize things are about to go off the rails, and they're about to go off the rails fast. Because it's not as if these guys are a group of people who are bisexual and happen to be like, well, I could go either way. I'm gonna be with a woman because of my religion and be in heterosexual marriage. That is not what's happening here. We are going to be watching a group of men who really want to be in the ass. The outward sexual attraction to men from the guys who are suffering from SSA is so brazen, and yes, I know this is a reality television show. A lot of this is probably constructed, but even still. Case in point, the next scene, where Jeff and Tanya are on a double date with Pret and Megan. Jeff spends nearly the entire dinner talking about how he finds their waiter to be hot, and Pret weighs in, oddly specifically talking about how the waiter is not really his type.
Did you guys notice anything?
He's a very good-looking guy.
I'd say you need a little more of the masculine butch. You need more of the all-American guy.
That's your type.
Well, yeah, sure.
And I can't really tell what's funnier about this scene. Jeff eye-fucking the waiter in front of the mother of his child, or Pret saying, the waiter is not butch enough. Religious fundamentalism completely aside, Mormonism has robbed us of Jeff being an aged Brooklyn queer with his 2 very small dogs and his much younger, muscle-bound boyfriend. Anyways, back to reality, where Jeff openly flirts with the waiter after having spent the last 20 minutes talking about how hot he was in front of his wife. My jaw was on the floor, because it is one thing to be openly speculating with your partner like, oh, isn't this waiter like so hot? Which personally, I wouldn't really tolerate in my own relationship, but to each their own. It's another thing entirely to flirt with the waiter after you've just spent 20 minutes talking about how hot he is in front of your wife. Oh my god, like, in the look he has. The look he has when he's doing it.
How was everything?
Really yummy.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Really good.
How's that goat cheese salad?
Very tasty. Good goat cheese.
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
Did you milk it yourself?
Sometimes.
Yikes.
Are we going home together,
Or,
Maybe he is gay, because if there's one thing we gays have, it is the absolute audacity to pull something like that. Anyways, all of the wives go on a nice hike, and you can really start to understand why the Mormons picked Utah to settle. It's just kind of unfortunate that of all the Americans to get there, they got there first. The air quotes there, of course, representing settler colonialism. So right away, the women are basically divided into two schools of thought. Megan doesn't really feel like she has to justify herself or her man or the SSA stuff, but Tanya, Jeff's wife, feels a little differently.
I experience SSA, or same-sex attraction.
not gay. SSA.
So are they gay or not?
I get a little defensive when somebody calls my husband gay.
And one of their friends who does not know anything about the community who's coming with them on the hike also is confused by this. And an underappreciated element of the comedy inherent to this entire documentary is the fact that she's named Harmony. It's a miracle she ended up in a Mormon church and not the Pink Pony Club, I'll just say that. You gotta be pretty careful if you're gonna name your kid something that very well could have been in the white trash name monologue from the movie Dead.
Alright, Brandy, Heather, Channing, Brianna, Amber, Sabrina, Melody, Dakota, Sierra, Bambi, Crystal, Samantha, Autumn, Ruby.
That's just a crazy name, man. From her perspective, if I'm on a hike with all my girlfriends and they kind of spring all this on me, it probably would be a little bit much to handle. But it would give me some clarity because it would finally explain why all of their husbands watch the Tonys every year, why they got forcibly removed from a movie theater for singing during a screening of Wicked, and, oh yeah, why they always talk about how hot the guys all around them are. I thought they had an open marriage, but it turns out they're just repressed queer men. Cool. And here we get to the documentary's only real attempt to provide a bit of a counterclaim to the whole SSA ideology. Whenever I'm watching a reality program and they take like 3 minutes to bring up essentially a normal person and interview them to provide context, it reminds me of two things. It reminds me of writing essays in middle school. The counterclaim to my hypothesis is, and it reminds me that I'm watching a reality program featuring deeply bizarre people. The gang is giving their friend Tom, another person struggling with SSA, a makeover before a date, and then they go on and meet two other gay men, one a former SSA and one a quote-unquote normal gay. One of the gay men, Sean, after hearing SSA described to them, frankly has a reaction that honestly, I'm sure many of you have had at some point while watching this video.
You're attracted to men, but you're going on a date with a girl?
I experienced the feelings, but I've chosen to find a wife, get married, have kids.
Why?
I've just always wanted that, I think. Some of that comes from religion, for me, faith.
I just love that Tom, having to justify this ideology that he now finds himself in, throws in an I think. He throws in an I think, really suggesting that you are steadfast in your belief, buddy. There is a quote that I did relate to pretty shortly after this, though.
I'm not afraid to be called gay. I just feel like it's not real accurate.
Me when I'm in 7th grade and I'm getting bullied by other guys. Anyways, on a more sad note, Jeff reveals that, yeah, in the past, he actually did date men and didn't really see anything wrong with it, but ultimately, same-sex attraction is something that you just kind of gotta get over and turn off. Pretty much almost verbatim, like Heath Ledger's character from Brokeback Mountain. Oh, well, you know, we may have these feelings, but let's not act on them. Of course, obviously, they ultimately do act on those feelings while they're going camping. And speaking of camping...
I think me and the guys are gonna go camping in a few weeks.
Camping?
What's that look?
Who's going?
A couple guys you don't know.
How well do you know these guys?
I don't know them very well, actually.
Yes, camping. That should really be your first giveaway, because heterosexual men go on fishing trips. Closeted gay men go on camping trips. I mean, camp is literally in the name. It's a subtle but important distinction there, and something tells me that there's going to be many different types of bears out in the wilderness on this vacation. Apparently, Jeff has gone on multiple of these trips, and just speaking purely subjectively, he looks incredibly guilty during this conversation he's having with his wife where he's talking about the camping. In the climactic sequence of the episode, we see Tom wearing an incredibly ugly shirt on the dinner party where all of his other friends have set him up for his blind date. That shirt being so repulsive is perhaps the greatest piece of evidence yet, more so than anything that any of the men have ever even said, that they're actually really not gay, because speaking as a gay man, I would rather show up to a date naked than wearing that shirt that looks like vomit. But let's check in. What's Tom's biggest concern coming into this date?
I'm just not sure that I'll meet a woman that I feel attracted to enough that I can move forward and build a life with.
Spoken exactly like a man who's trying to force himself into dating a woman who really doesn't want to be dating a woman. Tom initially doesn't want to tell his date that he suffers from SSA, and everybody else at the dinner party constantly want to keep making hints and bringing it up, causing Tom to at many different occasions just completely interrupt and change the subject of conversation. It's actually pretty funny. It becomes pretty difficult to do though at a certain point, because when his date asks, how do you all know each other? And when you really sit back and think about it, the only actual answer is that everybody in the room shares a collective desire to have a man's tongue down their throat. It becomes hard to just change the subject. And his date goes on to leave, and then at the doorstep, Tom provides an awkward confession that he suffers from SSA. She says, okay, thanks for telling me, and for some bizarre reason, TLC put some inspirational music in a display that really made me want to vomit on Tom's vomit shirt. And in the final moments of the show, all of the responsibility and onus for this entire phenomenon is placed entirely on the women.
It's incredibly important for a woman to be accepting of the same-sex attraction.
I don't think that's true. I think women deserve to be with men who don't flirt with male waiters in front of them, and I don't think I'm crazy for saying that. The waiter's gonna look at you and be like, oh, is this like some sort of challengers dynamic we got going on right now? You're also probably wondering, where are these people now? The answer is honestly quite depressing. According to the Daily Mail, marriages involving people who have SSA have about a 70% divorce rate, which is probably like worse than Russia, so that's not great. But shockingly, all three of the couples from the show are still together, and at least one person in every single couple is also a life coach and or therapist. So make of that what you will. Curtis and Tara recently celebrated 30 years of marriage, and Tara is currently a life coach. Megan is a kindergarten teacher, and Brett works as a nurse, but he also works part-time as a marriage and family counselor who specializes in people dealing with SSA. And as for Jeff and Tanya, well, Jeff has founded himself a whole new Mormon church where he sits on the board of directors specializing in SSA. And if you want me to go to their yearly convention in Utah, I guess you could give me a donation, but I'm asking you, I really don't want to do that. So don't do that, because I enjoy living. I don't want to be accosted in an alley in Salt Lake City by the third gang from West Side Story that was cut for time, that third gang being a bunch of overly persistent Mormon missionaries who are all dealing with SSA. What can be taken away from this special? Well, firstly, and perhaps most obviously, there are a lot of delusional people out there. That delusion clearly can even spiral to the point of having a full-on marriage with somebody who probably will never fully desire you, or at the very least will probably desire some random guy at the gym he saw once more than you.
Well, I didn't ever get his name, but he was at the gym.
Oh, somebody you were seeing at the gym?
He was at the gym. I still remember he was weighing himself, and he looked like Superman.
For those of you looking for marriage advice, if your husband remembers a random hot guy they saw at the gym years ago for no particular reason, I don't think their priorities are in the right place. I don't wish any of the people involved in this special any ill will, obviously, even though I'm sure they think I'm going to hell, which kind of reminds me of a dream I had after I watched this special. But still, this ideology is so pathetic and so harmful. The concept of SSA treats feelings of same-sex attraction as if they are something that is inherently negative and inherently evil or bad. This is obviously completely ludicrous. Any religion that is telling you that who you love and loving in the way that God made you is wrong is a religion that is severely misguided. And frankly, a lot of the behavior that's depicted in this episode of television wouldn't even really be tolerated in a heterosexual context. Should a wife accept her husband going to a sushi restaurant or, wherever else women are regularly found? Wouldn't know. Am gay. But should she accept her husband going over there regularly to stare at hot women? To flirt with hot women waitresses in front of them? No, I don't think so. So why is it so acceptable for this behavior to be coming from a man who is so deeply in the closet, he might as well be long forgotten Christmas decorations? Very sparkly, but only allowed to shine once a year, although, in the case of the men depicted in My Husband's Not Gay, that one time a year is during a camping trip with all of their guy friends. Yeah, with enough delusion, I think a marriage can probably survive that. But that's going to do it for me, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the video. If you've enjoyed it, please leave a like and please comment. Helps get this video out to more people. Thanks again to Pi for sponsoring. And what did you guys think? Is this ridiculous? Why does this exist? Does this signal any broader cultural decay or cultural confusion? There's certainly a lot of confusion in this special. Let me know if you guys want me to cover more crazy reality shows. I actually did used to study it in college. I'm fascinated by it, honestly. I've covered it in one other video, which I'll link there. Very fun video. I'm not going to say the title because YouTube censored that video because of the title. But as always, my name is Patrick, but my friends call me Pat, and I will see you for the next one.